All right, so we're good. So welcome to week 2 of our book club. And I'm excited. I feel like we're finally getting this book started, even though it's chapter 3. I feel like it's the first main principle of the book. So I'm just excited to hear what you guys pulled out of the chapter titled The Magic of Belief. We talk so much about belief in this business and how we can actively control what we believe. And I think this chapter gave such good examples of that. So I'm excited to kind of walk through what some of those things are and just some of the homework you did, which I know, this homework gets personal, so I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but I think at the same time we can, by working through this book together, is where we're actually going to see positive change and movement forward, right? So, anyways, I have a couple things underlined, but let's just jump right in. So does anybody else want to start and just share what they loved about the book, this chapter overall, or a specific thing, something personal, a quote you loved? We'll just go ahead and chat. So anyone want to go first? Natalia looks like she wants to know.
I'll go.
All right, Bailey, go ahead.
One of my favorite concepts that she brought up in this chapter was that everything is first a thought before it comes into existence. Mm-hmm. And it was just an interesting way to think about things, because we talk a lot about vision and things like that when we're talking about business stuff. But just the idea that before anything was ever invented or before anybody does anything, they have to think about it, whether that's I have to think that I want to go get coffee before I get coffee. I have to think that I want to do something before I do it. And I have to think that I'm going to hit a goal before I do it. So that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, there's a lot in this book in this chapter that I've heard before. And those are the things I tend to with this chapter that I highlighted already, that's one of the not few things, there's a lot I don't know, but that's what the first thing that popped out of this book where I was like, holy smokes, I've never actually thought of that before. But for those, you guys all read it, but that started on page 25 through 28 is that idea. Anybody else highlight that or want to say something about that part in particular?
Laura, I just got on Zoom. Sorry, you guys, I was late. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So just chapter 3, Shaylee just started by sharing that from this chapter, the part she really liked was that everything that we see or anything that was ever done or created first started as an initial thought. And just that popped out to her from this chapter. So that's what she said. Just getting the ball rolling with our discussion.
To piggyback on that, something I highlighted, I listened to the audiobook on this, so I'm reading it again on Kindle. She has it bolded in the text, but before a thought, there's the belief. So I love that, our beliefs have our thoughts to the feelings, to our behavior, to the result. So I think it's so important just to get deep, even a little level deeper than a thought is what we believe about ourselves, right? Or what we believe about anything. You could take it because before you think it, it's gonna come from your belief system or what you feel, deep down. So I think that's just another layer of the onion or whatever, is to get down to what we believe about ourselves and our business, or you could have put X, Y, Z in the fill in the blank.
If you see on page 28, it gives what Alicia's talking about, the thought, feeling, behavior, result. And I think as we tend to talk about belief, or even if the things we see or the things that have been accomplished and then it start with a thought, we tend to think it always ends in a positive result. And that's just not true, because if you have a negative belief, so say you have the thought of, I want to be a regional vice president. And how do you feel about that? How you behave, and the result you get stems from what kind of belief you have in the first place. So the belief, it has in bold too, belief is the hidden script that runs our life. And that's, you know, the quote we say, whether you believe you can or can't, you're right. And that truly is this whole chapter, right? So
My mom has literally told me that quote my entire life.
well,
Usually she was sassy, but like that's literally her motto.
Well, and it couldn't be more true. I mean, I've experienced that so many times, even just personally, you know, like if you believe you can't, you're not going to show up in the capacity you need to make it happen, right? So
So I have a thought, and it's kind of like moving on to like the human body unbelief. And this is like the nerdy nurse in me probably relating to this. When she talks about how mindset has the power to alter our neurochemistry, and like hope, for example, can block pain by releasing the endorphins and mimicking the effect of morphine. So the guy, like they talk about how the guy did those surgeries and the placebo effects and all that stuff. But it's funny because like in my department personally, what we do with kids, babies, for instance, because they don't have the ability to tell us, you know, we just know that they're hurting because they're screaming and they're crying. And so we actually give them something called sweeties. And sweeties, it's like just like a really thickened sugar water. And the whole theory behind that is that when you give them those few drops on their binky, or just like put it in their mouth as I'm putting an IV in, or we're suturing or doing something, is that the, I don't want to say they're endorphins, but whatever comes from them getting that little bit of sugar actually stimulates their brain, so that that takes over pain, so that they don't feel the pain. They focus on the taste of the sugar water. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
So like that's us trying to use effects to like change the way like the baby thinks like they may be experiencing pain, but we're finding another way to help them like put a positive, like not babies can have positive thoughts, but I mean they can, we just don't know. But by giving them the sugar water, it's actually, they can't process good and bad at the same time, so good always takes over. So I don't know, I just found that interesting because that's what I thought about when I was reading through that, is how we use that even at an infant level to try and give them positive reinforcement and positive thoughts, so that they don't always have these bad memories and negative thoughts to feed on, so that they can continue with positive feelings. And that's my nerdy nurse comment.
that's like, so yeah, that's so redeeming, you know, good takes over bad. It is.
It is. That's how I explain it to the parents, because they're like, why are you pouring sugar water in my baby's mouth? And I'm like, because it's not going to hurt then.
Yeah. Our minds are
the good
crazy.
takes over the bad, because the brain can't process both things at the same time.
So when I get my tattoo tomorrow, you're saying that I need to take a candy bar. Is that what we're saying?
What'd you say?
I said, so when I go get my tattoo tomorrow, you're saying I need to bring a candy bar.
Yeah, do it and let's see if it works.
I will. You know what? I will. That would be funny.
So every time it's like, no, 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 you'll be like,
No, it won't.
la, la,
No,
la, la.
I won't take a, yeah. That's funny. Our minds are so crazy though. They are just like unbelievable. All the studies that we had to learn about through my degrees and like getting my degree in psychology and then counseling, like the placebo effect is so legit. Like it's just crazy. It's so crazy how we can trick our minds, and that's truly like good or bad. But to know that we can trick our minds for the better, like truly like affirmations and just, I don't know, the things that seem to not be such a big deal can have a major impact on our belief system over time. All right, what else do you guys got?
Well, that kind of leads into my favorite quote, which is like all the way at the end of it, is on page 45 in bold. It just says the most powerful words in the universe are the words that you say to yourself. And when I read that, I literally like out loud was like, yes, that's so true. Because I mean, think of that. Think about it. Like, we hear everyone else's words all day, every day, and maybe they're not always negative, but it doesn't mean that they're positive just because they're not negative. And I think that we really need to be more conscious of like saying positive things to ourselves, because we probably don't get very many positive notes all day long. Like, I mean, think of like it, you know, your kids or whatever, like you're probably most of the day saying nice things to them, right? Like, good job, I'm so proud of you, like whatever. They hear that positive reinforcement all day long, but us as adults and also women, we don't. And it's important that we need to say it to ourselves. And I just think that that is so true, that the words that we say to ourselves are super, super powerful. So we need to make sure that they're good ones instead of bad ones. And I feel like we're going to talk about the homework a little bit later, but I really, really, really liked the striking out homework. And I was like, when she's like, really actually do it, it feels really good, I'm like, whatever. And I did like the first two and I'm like, man. And then I did the third one and I was like, yeah. And it felt like really, really good. So yeah, powerful words over here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think especially as women, we don't realize how often we are talking to ourselves. You know, we just don't realize how many thoughts we have pertaining to our capabilities and our achievements and our desires and our futures and our decisions. Like, we are constantly talking to ourselves and don't realize it. And when we do that all day long, unconsciously, most of the time, like, I don't want to say most of the time because I don't know you, and I wouldn't say that it happens a lot more than we think, is what I think, that it's negative. Like, we talk to ourselves negatively because we do want to be better, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's definitely a place for being proud of where we are in the moment, which comes back to our homework too. So we can definitely talk about that here in a minute. All right, what else? Anybody else have something they want to bring up?
So there's like, it's kind of like the whole paragraph. It's a lot, but the part where she talks about, it says from borderline retarded to college graduate, and then it talks about the test scores don't tell you where a student could end up. It only tells you where a student is now. When I was in high school, my teachers told me I would never get into nursing school and I would never get a hospital job and I would never be a nurse because I failed math class. And they sat me down with my parents and pretty much told me, like, don't bother going to college for nursing. It's not worth it. And so based on my test scores and stuff, like, there was no way I was getting into college or into nursing just based on that math grade. And it really, like, math was my struggle, and it like really messed up my test scores on my ACT and stuff too, and my entrance exams. And then now here we are, I work in a hospital, I'm in nursing school, like, I'm close to finishing. And I think about that all the time, because if I would have sat there and listened to them and like taken it like serious, which I didn't, and I'm thankful for that, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. But like, when I read that, the whole story, which I haven't thought about in probably like 3 years, all popped back up. And it was like, wow, I believed that I could do it, so therefore I did do it. And if I would have sat back and listened to them, it would have, like, that wouldn't have happened to me. So like, I believed I could do it, and that's where it ended up. So like, that whole, I think it was like 3 pages, honestly, because I have 3 pages folded down about all of that, was like, wow, I completely relate to this. I feel this, I understand this, and I understand how beliefs can change how you react to things or do things, because it happened to me. So yeah.
I cannot believe that. That is just like, that just so frustrating. That's such a powerful story, Jordan.
I want you to know I had a horrible day too, and I wasn't going to read the book. I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. And I read this and I was like, of course I relate to this. Of course I read this and this is what it is. So of course I'm going to get on the call tonight. Like,
yeah,
it all kind of like fell into place for me there. So yeah.
It is so crazy too, because I'm reading this book called Outliers, and it's more of like a science-based book. It's really good, but it's full of like really deep information about studies and stuff, and just talking about how successful people, it's not always just hard work ethic or traditional skill. It has a lot to do with your environment. But the one thing they talk about is when children are in school, especially in the younger grades, how children who are older in their grade level are generally going to be the more successful in their graduating class, because they're almost a whole year older than the other kids that are taking tests. And so to think that children born late summer are being compared to children that are born in the spring is totally off, and it sets people up to be told they're not smart enough to do certain things. And so much of it has to do when they start school and what age group they are, and the studies they've done are just crazy. And so I don't know, it's just crazy to think. They said starting in kindergarten through elementary school, they should do all spring babies in one kindergarten class, all summer babies in another. So you're being compared to your same age group. And I think that makes so much sense, you know? But anyways, it just made me think of that. Like if you're, you know, a lot of it has to do with age too, and being compared to other people in your level that naturally might not be on your level might set someone up to fail because their belief is low, when really that has nothing to do with their situation, you know? Anyways, it's a good book. It's heavy, but if you're into that kind of stuff, you would really love it. It's good. But does anybody else have a story like that?
I have a story like Jordan's. It's not about me. It's actually about my husband.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So when Joe was little, he's dyslexic. And he also has like reading comprehension issues. And the teachers took my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. And for you guys that don't know me very well, my father-in-law is a school teacher. And my mother-in-law was a librarian. So it's like they're very much into like the learning process. And my husband's the third out of 4 kids. So the teacher told my mother-in-law, she sat her and my father-in-law down and told them not to expect much from him because he isn't going to amount to anything. And so my mother-in-law and father-in-law said, like, absolutely not. We're not just going to let you put him down and say that he's not, like, you know, going to be able to amount to anything. And I think that, like, he's upstairs. But I think that really messed with him because when we started dating, he was like, he went back to school and he got a master's degree, and he was like over like a 4.0 in his master's program. And he went back and got his PhD, and he had like over a 4.0 in his PhD program. And like, I think that what that did to him as being a kid, like, because he will tell you that people always looked at him and said he was stupid and thought he was stupid and referred to him as stupid. And it still bothers him, and he's almost 50 years old, and it still bothers him today that, you know, people like would view him that way. And I think that's why he's very proud of the fact that he has a doctorate, and he's very proud of the fact that, you know, he is a teacher, and he's really good at what he does. And he teaches math because obviously he's dyslexic and he's terrible with letters, but like, he has the ability to connect with people who feel like they're not enough and make them feel like they are and help them to a point, you know? So even like, this is his story, not mine, but he'll never tell anybody that story. And I know that this group, everything stays here. But like he really, like, so Jordan, as you were like saying these things, I'm like, yeah, like that's how he felt when he was little and growing up. And my mother-in-law sat with him for hours every single day and pushed him and pushed him and pushed him.
Can you imagine if he didn't have the support?
Oh, I know.
Like,
he wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's what fostered the belief in him, which is one of the things I want to mention is just, which I want to hear other stories if we have them, but where do your beliefs come from? That part of the chapter, and there's like, 5 different things: experience, environment, examples, evidence. Like, all of this stuff truly does matter, and we have the power to change it. But thankfully, like, a lot of the success we do see is people having to work through these past, like, walls that have been built up for their belief. Hold on. What, Evelyn? Did you want to say hi? No? She didn't want to say? Okay. See ya. I love you. Okay. Jordan, did you see what Trisha wrote?
Yeah, I saw that. I just feel like so many people have stories like that, and like no one ever really talks about them. And like I mean, Cindy, like, my dad's a teacher, and he taught at that high school that I was at. Like, I went there because of him, and he sat down and he would sit with me day in and day out and like help me with things. And like, I wasn't accepted into the nursing program I wanted to be accepted into. I actually was backtracked, and I feel like based on what I said, like in response to what Laura said, I needed extra time. Like I've always been like slightly behind where I should be, and I've always needed the extra time. And my mom was the one who said it first. She was like, you've always needed the extra 6 months. Like, just calm down. This is normal for you. You've always needed that extra couple of months to get it together. And so I feel like everything everyone is saying is like so accurate to my story and so true, and I've seen it so many other times. So it's kind of cool that we all have a story or something to contribute like that.
When is your birthday, Jordan?
December, so I'm like at a weird border.
Yeah, me too.
Joe is a June baby.
Okay, see. So we're having Ever Repeat kindergarten this year because she's in April. So she's one of the younger in her class. And I noticed that she's about like 8 to 10 weeks behind being tested. Not that I'm concerned about kindergarten testing. I'm not the stressed mom about it. But I just noticed like it's not clicking for her like I'm seeing it click with our friends' kids. And so I struggled with like keeping her in or holding her. And her teacher was like, Laura, she's either going to be a little bit behind all the way up, or she's going to be ahead and ready to go. And a lot of parents just don't want to do that, but it's best for kids that need it. And so we're repeating her. She's probably going to be the tallest kid in her class because she was last year already. But I don't want her in that position, because a lot of the beliefs you build yourself in the school, whether your parents are there to support you or your environment, you create a lot of your own beliefs too growing up, So, any other stories? All right, well, I'll share my quote before we jump into homework unless somebody else has another quote. But the part I really liked, and I've actually trained on this before, but it comes a lot from, what's the guy who does Mentorfish? I forget his name. I can't think of his name, but why our beliefs tend to stick. And I've heard him speak in person a couple different times, and he preaches this whole concept. And basically the homework we did is what he will have you do at one of his trainings, meetings, or conferences. And it is so, so powerful to retrain your brain around certain negative beliefs that you have about yourself. But what he talks about is our confirmation bias. And we as human beings naturally want to be right. And so if we believe something, even if it's a negative thing, without realizing, we naturally put ourselves in a position to prove ourselves right. So we might not even be realizing that we're doing it. So for example, if you do want to do like a business example, is we tell ourselves, like, we have this innate belief that we cannot promote district managers direct to us. So you're naturally going to act and behave in a way that keeps your new sponsor from actually promoting the district. So you can say, see, I'm right. And so you have to change your belief about that so you naturally act differently. And this is true. If you believe you're going to have a killer June and you have great volume halfway through the month, don't you act differently the second half of the month to prove yourself right than you do if you don't have a great volume on the 15th? You act differently after to prove yourself right. So the good thing about this, like it says on the next page, on page 42, is you can change it. It takes time and it takes consistent effort of telling yourself over and over and over again. I know it's hard to think if I just say something out loud, like what does that matter? But it is true. What you tell your brain doesn't know what's fact or fiction. What you tell it, it believes. And so you naturally start acting in a way that makes that true. So if you tell yourself you're not good enough, you're going to act like you're not good enough because your brain truly believes what you tell it. So I highlighted the quote, the paragraph that says on page 42 at the bottom, when you look more closely, a belief is nothing more than a thought that you've decided is significant and true. That's it. There's nothing actually holding that belief in place. No steel bars, no padlocks, no chains. Like any other thought, it appears in your mind. You can deliberately choose to dismiss it. And then if you keep reading, you can choose over and over again to believe the opposite or something more positive, which is exactly what the homework has you do. So does anybody have another part of the chapter they want to talk about before we talk about homework? All right, so the homework, like, I gotta look up his name here in a second, but the homework is very much like that guy's homework. He has us just come up with all these beliefs that we have about ourselves that we know are negative, and sometimes it takes a while to actually think through different beliefs that we have, because it might not be like actionable beliefs for us right now. Like, one of the examples he gave in this chapter is believing that marriage always ends in divorce, so I'm not going to get married. You might not be married, you might not even be in a relationship, but it's still a negative belief you have that's going to impact your future. So it takes some time to think about what these negative beliefs are, but then actually rewriting them in a positive way and believing those things are, or so the opposite of those things is what you would write down. And so that's a lot of what this homework had us do. So did anybody find it easy to make a list of things to cross off, or did some of you have to like take some time? Did anybody want to, I guess maybe to talk about this homework, what did you get from the homework? Why don't we just talk about that? Whoever wants to talk about it, you can be as specific or not specific as you want, but what did you gain from doing homework this week? Is there one thing that stuck out to you more than the other, or whatever? Why don't we just jump in and share whatever we want about it?
I'll go. I have something for sure.
All right, Kathy, let's go.
I struggled a little bit to be, I guess, fully honest with myself. It's hard to go to a negative place, even though I'm probably in a negative place more than maybe everybody is, more than they want to realize. But then to force yourself to go to a negative place, even though I know she's doing it to bring us back. So I feel like even the things that I could think of were almost surface level. And I could probably go deeper, but I wasn't. This is, I guess, sort of even my first personal development true attempt. So I don't even know yet what I got to get through surface first before so I don't even know. But I really liked what I got out of it was I'm the one telling myself this. Nobody's telling me. There's no woman in this group who would say, oh, you're right, Kathy, you're probably not going to do very well in school. Or, yeah, you're right, Kathy, Arbonne's not going to work for you. No one is saying that. Everyone is supportive. It's me that's giving me negative messages. That was what I got out of this. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. That's hard to do to yourself and realize, no, it's me. It's coming from me. You just stop listening. Mm-hmm. Everybody, why am I not believing the other people around me? Why do I believe one person over everybody else?
Well, and I will tell you, since this is like your first self-development book, they don't all have homework.
That's
so
okay.
They don't all dive in this deep. But seeing that it is your first one, I think it's a good one, because like diving into personal stuff is hard. Surface stuff is hard when you've never done it before, for sure. And the two things you brought up are not surface. Those are not surface things, because in the next few chapters, you will they kind of take this and break it down. So like to a certain extent, like, and not, yeah, anyways, they will come back to this and be like, why do you think, Kathy, that you're not going to do good in school? What is it? And it makes you really sit in that and think, what created that thought? And why is that a ridiculous thought? Why am I holding on to that so tight? And how can you take that, like, call it BS and turn it over, and look at what your accomplishments have been instead of what feels like failures, which I believe we fail our way to success. But like, by starting a surface list, you're able to but you have to take the time to do it. You have to sit with these things and really think, what created that belief so deep in me that I'm believing these things about myself, So did you cross them out, and did you follow through with the homework?
I did. I crossed it out. I didn't find that nearly as powerful as the next step where she said, okay, now rewrite it. And that was where that one was where I was like, oh shit, we're getting in it now. Okay, this is how we're doing this. The crossing it out was easy. I wrote bullshit in all capital letters, but the next step was where I was, that's where it really started to hit me.
Okay. So do you mind sharing what you wrote about, like, school or your
I don't even know that was one of them. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, okay.
That was just an easy example. Hold on. Okay, so what I wrote was, I said, I think question number 2, the things that I crossed out, like, oh, if I lost weight, or if I had more money, if I was in a relationship. But those are things I'm telling myself. I don't. And then the next one was where I'm saying, I have supportive people who love me no matter what I weigh, what I look like. I don't need a relationship. I've been on my own for 10 plus years, and I have supportive friends and family around me. I have enough money to do what I need to do in my life. I don't have extra, but I always have had enough. And what I'm seeing is, it's just comparison to other people. It's comparing myself to my neighbors, to my coworkers, to my siblings. It's not my neighbors saying Kathy doesn't have enough, or my brother or sister saying Kathy isn't good enough. It's me looking at what I see other people have. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say what they have. It's what I see that they have.
Mm-hmm. Comparison is so tough. It is so difficult. And we like are consistently like battling that in this business. But
isn't that what they say? It's comparison is the thief of joy. Isn't that what they say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is one of my like banner like trainings when I train anybody like on a team scale, is I talk about comparison, because it has totally stolen joy from my life. And if I could go back, what I would change. So I think though, when you go through it, you learn better for the next time. You know, you're able to see it more clearly, but comparison's really difficult. So, well, thank you for being open and sharing with us.
You're
And
welcome.
it's not always easy, but I think it can be really helpful. So, right. Anybody else want to share anything else about their homework? What they thought of it, if it was good, if it was bad, if it didn't work for you like you had hoped?
I thoroughly enjoyed writing down that everything is figure-outable because I feel like people challenge me and tell me that I can't do something, and I'm like, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to show you wrong.
You are that person too. You are. Like, it's a competition for you. Yeah, you are that person.
I feel like you've challenged me when you tell me. Not when I tell myself and I have a pity party for myself, like that's different. Then I can't figure it out. But when somebody else tells me, then I'm like, you know, so like this whole thing where my kid's going to high school, we had to decide, like, can we really afford to send our to Emily to go to Padua? And Joe said to me, she's going to need to get some big scholarships. And I said, okay. So what did I do? I went and researched how to get. I called the school. I asked them, what do I need to do? Right? I got to write some paragraphs. Okay, we'll write some paragraphs. I'll volunteer my heart out. I will do whatever I need to do. And guess what? It was figure-outable, because then they replied, Emily got a really awesome scholarship to go to high school there. And now Gracie is in the process of applying to go to high school there. And the admissions director, you guys did my video today. It was really exciting. And she
Does everybody know about your video?
Oh, okay. I'll tell you really quick. Padua High School asked me to do a testimony for part of their marketing, because they said I'm really exciting. So I got to do a parent testimony, because we can't do shadowing for the incoming freshmen. We can't do open houses or anything. So parents are only going to have this video link now. So they called me up and they said, hey, Mrs. Padovic, we'd love if you could come and tell us why you love Padua so much. And you guys, I found out today, I was the only parent they asked. I thought I was with a group of people. So I'm writing out like all the stuff I want to say. And I really ended up talking about one thing. But I said, I just want to tell me what other parents said because I don't want to repeat what they said. And she goes, oh, we just asked you, Mrs. Padovic. And I went, oh. And then I got really more nervous. But they were super fun. But I went in there saying to myself, because the admissions director said, now is Grace going to be attending Padua? And I said, well, if we can find a way to make it a little less expensive. And she goes, we can help you do that. We want her here. And you know what? Everything is figureoutable because I'm making it figureoutable. I will not go to bed until it's figureoutable. So I wrote on my DMS sheet today, everything is figureoutable. All the way to Padua, I said, everything is figureoutable. And when I left, I had 2 conversations with the recruiting director about additional scholarships that Grace can apply for. So
That is awesome. I love it.
it's figureoutable.
It is. That's the perfect story to share. I mean, because I remember you going through that whole process. And
I know.
Like,
And look at me. I'm a walking advertisement.
what do you know? Cindy's the poster child. The poster.
You guys, look, I made sure this made it in the video.
Yes.
Don't you worry.
Yes. I love it.
So I just wanted to share one short, quick thing. When we were running at Region Qual, it reminded me of this because Cindy said, when somebody tells you you can't do something, you're going to do it. And Laura sent me this video of these stickies she had up at her house. And she's like taking 1 or 2 down. And let me tell you, there was still like a lot of stickies to go. And Laura's sassy little mouth is like, I think you guys are going to do this. Do you know how many times I watched that stupid video being like, yeah, we are. I'm going to show you that we're going to do it. Like, one little seed of like, I think you guys, you might do this. Maybe. Like, I could tell you, she was like, I don't know if you will or not. But I was like, it's on.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
I think we tend to, like, it's not just what we say to ourselves too. I think we can take this a step further and realize how powerful our words are for other people, especially, and I'm going to keep bringing back to business because we do that together. And I remember before I was a regional vice president, Carrie and Mickey would like write me cards and say, you will be a vice president in our team. You will be the next ones, things like that. And I never realized how important that was to me until I actually did it. And then I was like, one of the main reasons I believed I could is because they kept telling me just simple little, like, not saying we believe you can, saying you will. And so on this team, as we speak to ourselves and we grow teams or we create accountability partners and sideline friendships, like, you need to speak life over other people. Because it truly matters more than you think. I had no idea that little video, like, literally, it was probably like 10 seconds long, if that. I had no idea that it had that much power over her that month. I had no idea.
I just rewatched it.
Yeah.
So, like, why do I have the sneaking suspicion that you're actually going to pull this off? I was like, am I? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else want to share? Okay, well, I will just say the first time I did this was more powerful than this time, I would say. But I did it. I'm going to look up his name real quick, just because it's going to drive me crazy.
While you look that up, I have one thing to say, because I'm not going to share all my homework. But did anyone else really enjoy, like, writing who you would be without your limiting beliefs, like what that would look like? Yeah, I enjoyed that. That's all.
I think it's so, like, freeing, and, like, it kind of opens your eyes to what your potential is. I think we don't necessarily sit and think about our potential all the time. You know, we know what we want, but what are we capable of if we really do believe in ourselves, you know?
Laura, you're not talking about Keith Kochner, are you?
Yes.
Okay, I was sitting here and I'm like, but she would know his name. So
yeah, I couldn't think. That's who it is. Cindy and I actually went to one of their little, like, their conferences. But but he also spoke at a few Arbonne events too. And the first time he had us do that, basically what this homework was at a big Arbonne conference. There were like 500 VP or area managers and VPs there. And he had us sit and write out these limited beliefs that we have about ourselves. And I remember, and then we had to like write the opposite out as affirmations, but he had us take the limiting beliefs and ball them up and walk to the front and toss them in a trash can. And it was like so powerful. But I remember I was not a region. It was during that 6 months I had lost my region. And I remember just sitting there, and it was one of the only times like I really let my guard down and broke down, and I like cried, and I could not come up with anything else to write down outside of I'm not good enough. And I just wrote that down, and everyone else was making all these lists, and all I could come up with, because it just embodied everything I had been feeling for months. I'm not good enough. And I wrote it out, and I sat there and I cried and I cried and I cried. And then I ripped it up, and my affirmation, I mean, these don't have to be like long and lengthy. They just have to mean something to you. And so my affirmation was, I am good enough. It was that simple. It didn't have to be anything crazy. But when I decided to shift my thought process, and then this homework has you go even a step further in step 5 and write out, who would you be what could you accomplish if you truly believed you are good enough? And thinking that daily, making yourself have those affirmations and changing your belief to that will change what your mind thinks, which makes you behave to make yourself correct. So you start acting differently. You talk to people about Arbonne when you believe you're good enough to be successful. You share the business opportunity differently when you believe you're good enough to be successful. It's because your brain's believing what you tell it, and you are going to act and behave in a way to make yourself right. And so it really is so powerful, and it's so simple, but it's a simple process, but you just have to it's easy to do and it's easy not to do, So, okay. Anybody else want to share before we're done with this week?
Yeah, I actually wanted to share my homework number 5 because Shaylee brought it up that it doesn't feel really good to write those things out. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
Okay.
I also wanted to apologize. I didn't realize my camera was off because I was too busy looking at Laura talking. And then I'm like, why isn't my camera on? What the heck?
Oh.
Okay, so my number 5, if all of these things were non-existent in my brain,
Excited to hear this.
I would be shining much brighter. I'd be smiling and full of love, and kindness and generosity would spill from my heart and my mouth. I would be excited every day, and I would hate to go to bed. I would be strong-willed, and I would say no to things that don't serve me. I would be happy even when things were really, really hard.
That is so good. I love that. I feel like you need to like print that out as like an affirmation.
Yeah.
And instead of say I would be, say I am.
I am.
Right? We should all do that. We should take what we wrote and type it up, print it out, put it as like the background of your phone, and read it first thing when you get up and last thing you do before you go to sleep, and just see like how that affects us. That would be great. Does anybody else want to share what they wrote for that? You don't have to, but if you want. I'm just reading what Trisha wrote. Trisha, I love that. I love that. Did you guys read what Trisha wrote? Does anybody else have that like experience when they started Arbonne, like had this like, oh, I'm a lot more negative than I thought I was experience? Because I did when I started. Holy smokes.
I still struggle with it all the time. You know that. Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, it took me years to become someone who naturally was like, where negativity annoys me. Like I have a really hard time with it because I've just grown into this person that I really do try to have a really good positive perspective. Like it annoys Brandon because he's like, you're my wife. You're the person I go to complain about stuff. And I'm like, not me. Find another buddy, because I'm gonna help you figure it out. Everything's figure outable. Like if that annoys you, let's figure out how to change it, So But I never realized how negative I was till I started Arvon, and I started just inherently realizing, which is no good, right? So, all right. So, this next chapter is good. Eliminating excuses. I'll tell you what, especially over the summer, I've come up with a lot of them, especially right now. I think we're all like, so easy to deal with excuses. So, next Thursday night, chapter 4 with homework. Tonight was fun, guys. I loved it. Thanks for being here with me. All right, I'll post this for everyone to discuss tomorrow. And I know people weren't super talkative last week other than us. Let's do it again, though. Let's show up and comment and get people involved, okay? All right, good night, everybody.